So, you want to play Cyberpunk Red, but the other gonks around your table only want to play a certain D20 fantasy game. Or perhaps maybe your game master just has too many irons in the fire and can't learn another game. Or perhaps you're like me, a game master who runs a lot of games but isn't in a lot of games of Cyberpunk Red. Well, now you can play with yourself. You have single player mode now, coming from the wonderful minds of Art House Oregon Games and Peter Norton of the Hollow Pond Solo Saga. And just to give some background on who Peter Norton is real quick, Peter Norton started playing TTRPGs in the mid-80s and was introduced to the original box set of Cyberpunk, which was also known as Cyberpunk 2013, and played Cyberpunk 2020 in university while over in the UK. Peter is now in Australia and has a YouTube channel called the Hollow Pond Solo Saga, which I'll have linked below for you guys to go check out. And Peter has worked on, playing different TTRPGs, well, by yourself, solo mode or single player mode. I keep getting corrected to call it single player mode, but I mean, solo being a role in there, I kind of get why there's some confusion, but I kind of like the idea of it being called solo mode. But that aside, single player mode, it is great for you as a player to be able to play Cyberpunk, or even as a GM. There's a lot of fantastic tools in here that are super helpful. So in this video, we are going to be covering 4 different categories, and the 4 different categories are, well, also the chapters. There is going it alone, what the solo play core tools are, how to run missions and campaigns, and also lists and tables. That being said, welcome to the channel. I'm Diamond Dust, and let's finally talk about the newest publication, or actually the first major cut publication this year for 2025 for Cyberpunk Red. So, you're ready to get into single player mode, and you want to dive in, but how do these tools work? I won't tell you exactly how all the tools work because it's not released yet, and I don't want to give away the paywalled content on my channel. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a very basic rundown of how all the tools work, and then it is up to you to have a look afterwards and find the answers for yourself. Don't worry, this should be a pretty affordable expansion. It's on DriveThruRPG once it releases, and I would say probably no more. I would have to guess this is probably going to be a really affordable expansion for Cyberpunk. So you have check questions, closed questions, and open questions as your main engine for driving the narrative. Check questions are very much like the push-pull between GM and player at the table, where it is a situation of player, hey, I want to sneak up on the guard and assassinate them, and the GM being like, okay, roll stealth, and then the GM rolls perception, and you determine if either the guard notices or the player passes a stealth check, continue the story from there. Or you also ask, would it be possible for the character to jump the gap, and you set a DV and then roll to see if the character can jump the gap. Those are check questions. It's very much you are rolling dice checks based on skills. Next up, we have closed questions, which you consult an oracle called, well, the closed question oracle that deals in probability. There is 5 answers you can get from this, and they specifically answer yes or no questions with 5 different answers. No, but complication, complicated, yes, but complication, and yes. And the And you kind of determine what is the likelihood, the probability here, whether it be like certain, likely, 50-50, unlikely, or impossible. And then you have the oracle answer the question, and then continue play as such. Open questions. There is a verb, noun, adjective table that is used to answer questions that aren't a simple yes or no. You roll a D100 on each of those and use those as prompts to find ways to tell your story going forward. And what you do there is you answer something that, like, using the prompts that you have there, you answer like what's on the other side of the wall, what's just beyond the door, or like who's out in the street. It is very much, adapt to the answers given. And if you don't like the answers, or you feel that the answers don't fit, nobody is stopping you from changing it. Nobody is. And then also provided here are gameplay tools to cover other scenarios that come up. Investigations, you have a series of skill checks that the characters must complete, and you determine how those, like, what those skill checks are and how they impact the narrative, and do they pass, or do they come up on a dead end? Do they find something that isn't the answer, but it's another lead? That is another thing with investigations that you can do. And then there is also, of course, making sure that you take account with failure that perhaps there's an encounter that comes up, maybe a resource drain. Perhaps they need to make other checks to find what they're looking for. And then just narrate how this plays out, what this looks like. Perhaps maybe you just don't know what you're looking for yet, and this is very much, I know I have this many checks, what are they going to find at the end? And perhaps this is where you use the open question oracle as well to help you find your answers. We have social challenges. You're having a conversation with someone that might be a tough nut to crack, or you're trying to feed information to someone carefully. And of course you need the goal, how many checks are going to be needed, and make the checks and kind of narrate what it looks like when these checks are going on. But of course, sometimes things don't work out. Information gets, discombobulated. Perhaps the negotiations didn't go well. But now you just gotta find a new way forward. Combat here, compared to a full-on Friday night firefight, what you could do instead is use some very quick and dirty rules to get the outcome here. And there is an awesome table that shows the morale of opponents, where every once in a while they may have a spot where they get too stressed to get fight, that you can roll to see if they're going to stick around or not. Which, there's of course unsure street rats that will end the fight as soon as you point a gun at them. Maybe trained combatants that are 50-50. Maybe they'll stick around, so maybe they will leave. Or perhaps you're dealing with a full-on cyber psycho who is just in the throes of it, ready to, tear everyone in their way. So anytime they hit a stress point, whether they get a critical injury or seriously wounded, or perhaps their side is like, you know, half of their half of the people on that side are seriously wounded or critical injured. Important things like that that really define which way combat's going. You can roll to see if they're going to stick around or if they're going to buzz off. When it comes to combat in single player mode, the quick and dirty combat system itself is really good for when you don't have the time or you don't feel that a full-scale Friday night firefight is required for this scene. So first things first, there is a step on knowing the combatants that are present. You should know if there is hardened members amongst your crew, which that's talked about in hardened enemy DLCs. You can find those for free over on Artal's website. Next up, you take the edge runner and opponent that have the highest tactics scores, and you have them roll against each other, and then record the result of who had the higher tactics roll. Next up, you have to determine how many attacks are going to be done in this game, because compared to Friday Night Firefight, where you're rolling against either DVs or attack versus evasion, you are rolling attack versus attack here. So what happens here is you will have to calculate how many attacks happen based on some specific rules given, whether it be how many people are present, are there any hardened members amongst the crew, is there specific speedware involved, who won the tactics check. Also, enemies get bonuses for there being lieutenants or mini bosses present, or bosses. What you'll do is each side is going to roll an attack roll, where each person will roll the number of attacks they are contributing, and then you take the highest attacks per side, compare them to each other, and keep going down the list until you've determined who has made more attacks, and in that case, that side would win the fight. It is a very fast, quick way to determine if somebody's going to have a better chance or not. And something I am kind of surprised by is, with this, as just a personal note, the amount of bonuses that the edge running crew get for attack rolls seems a little thin. I'm surprised that there isn't anything for the possibility of having, you know, some bonus cyberware for being able to target people, such as, you know, the targeting scope, smart link, smart bullets. But finally, compare the results, narrate the outcome, and then go forward. And then net running also gets a quick and dirty system, where, much like an investigation or a social situation, you determine how many checks the net architecture will require to complete, while based on the size of it. And you can determine the size of this based on what the core rulebook has to say. Or if you use like any of the quick reference net architectures that come in the single shot pack that are in Interface Red Volume 1. I think it's also its own free compilation as well over on the website. With quick and dirty net running, you determine the DV needed to beat things, including Black Ice. Beating Black Ice and quick and dirty is just a DV of either sliding, Or if you want to go into a full-on, ice fight, you totally can do that. And then finally, one of the other core tools that I like in here is the clock. I really like the clock because it really puts pressure on the situation. And it also helps you determine when something might come in. So it's not coming in too early, not coming in too late. What you'll do is you'll get a pile of D6s that you feel would be reasonable size for the amount of time present. So perhaps you're dealing with, perhaps you're dealing with a bomb. You don't know when that bomb's going to go off. Put 3 or 4 D6 in the tray and roll the dice pool every time certain things happen. Perhaps, when they roll 1. I think that is in fact one of the examples in here is the bomb. If you're doing something that, it's during one specific scene or beat, 5 to 6 D6 would be appropriate enough for when something might show up. And that's for like some longer suspense compared to shorter suspense. And what happens here is you determine what triggers a roll of those dice. And the clock ticks down every time you roll a 1 on the D6s. And then you remove 1 from the pool. However, you can also include some variables in here. The edge runners could possibly buy back time by performing a rather risky skill check. They can remove a D6 from the dice pool in order to replenish their luck pool. And also, you can maybe also remove dice on a 6 as well. 1s or 6. And then, of course, there's degrees of consequences. Probability suggests the dice pool most likely going to empty 1d6 at a time. But it can surprise you. If the dice pool empties because of 2 or more d6s, it might ramp up the severity of whatever's about to come. So perhaps, the cops are showing up, but the cops aren't just showing up with, 4 beat cops and some very heavy pistols. They're also showing up with perhaps a Doberman as well. The Doberman drone. So all the tools that are in the solo play core tools, they're there to help you tell a story, add suspense, add thrill, and at the same time, you don't have to spend so much time rolling dice for every single individual. So next up, we're going to talk about how we do missions and campaigns in Cyberpunk. So you understand how the engine works now. You also understand why you are choosing to play by yourself. And now it's, what's the mission? How do we get the edge runners going on their story? Well, the crew needs work. Rent's got to be paid. And also, of course, ammunition isn't cheap either. Especially the really good ammunition. And well, you gotta have a mission in order to pay them. And the way you do this is you can figure out who's hiring. You can, select from the many different execs, fixers, other various job givers you have in your dossier, perhaps as a GM. Or you have a roll table here to help you find someone as well, called People of Night City. Then you figure out what the mission is. There are mission generators in this book as well, which we'll talk about in the next chapter. you determine what the mission is, what they're paying you for. Then you figure out the focus of the mission. What exactly are the edge runners doing? And, you know, who might be involved? What are you looking for? Where are you trying to hit? And why is this happening? And perhaps they don't know all the... Perhaps the edge runners don't know all that either. Next up, determine what the payment might be. An easy job is usually about 500 eddies. Pretty standard, typical job. Expect some combat, a little bit of danger. Nothing over the top, 1,000 eddies. Something absolutely dangerous, though, is going to be about 2,000 eddies. And maybe there's other, rewards, favors, information that could be given in place of money. But of course, like with any good Cyberpunk Red mission, there's a twist. There is always a twist in everything. And, well, Peter has a fantastic example of what this mission looks like when you look over here on the when you look through the book, where he talks about a story of the sightseers and the NCPD, making reference to what happened in Danger Gal Dossier, which I think is really, really cool that we have a story on that now. But that's Peter's story of it. Your story could be different. And one of the best things that I would recommend is use the beat chart system that comes in the core rulebook. In fact, there is now a roll table to help you determine hooks, developments, climaxes. There is all this awesome stuff going on here. And even the Oracle could be used to answer questions as well. Well, cliffhangers, and then the climax is last, of course. And maybe you even determine your beats as you go. This is totally fine. You are playing a game for yourself. And something that Peter even recommended is use a clock. So every time that a beat happens, you roll the dice pool and see what comes up. And there's even a great beat chart example in here as well. So when you are doing missions, campaigns, you have tools. If you have the core rulebook, you have everything you need to write a mission. And then single player mode just adds on top of that to give you something quick, unexpected, and all at the same time, fun. With that, finally, we'll talk about these list tables, what's all in here, but I won't get into the exact specifics as always, because it is paywall content. I'll see you in just a second. So, last but not least, probably one of the more exciting parts of the table that I think everybody can get some benefit out of. GMs, even at your fully crude tables, this is a good one as well. These listed tables, these random idea generators, they are loaded with stuff. Loaded. This is the spot I was really excited to talk about. So, of course, just a general rundown of what this is, and I will give you the overview of each section, but I'm not going to get like too nitty-gritty into the details because there is too much to try to stuff into one video here. So first things first, they did put the Oracle and the morale table in here as well, right at the beginning for easy, quick reference. But then there's also a lot of other things that can be answered with open-ended questions using the listen table as index, looking through here, seeing what works. Now, mind you, everything else was up to page 34. We are now on page 33. We are now on page 34, or page 33. So everything leading up to this, less than right around 30 pages. The rest of this, just nearly 100 pages. We're nearly at 100 pages in this book. So, first things first, you got, your verbs, nouns, adjectives for answering very vague questions present here that make up pages 34, 35, 36, and that's great for answering, what's on the other side of the wall? Who's out in the street? What are we, what do we stumble upon in this secret meeting? Then there's sights, sounds, and smells to add some texture to your city. Give that smell of fresh trash in the morning, or, the sound of roaring AVs passing overhead. Or perhaps even, the sound of kids laughing out in the street at probably something that you would be mortified at. There's locations. What district are you going to? Where's the mission taking you? There's location generators as well. That take you to handpick spots across the various districts that have been pre-established. We have places to live as well. All the various cube hotels, cargo container communities, corporate con apps, apartment buildings, and then also some hot spots and bars as well are present in here to roll on. You have factions, which are, the corporations, crime organizations, gangs, law enforcement groups, which I guess are gangs, and just, other, community groups as well. There's the people of Night City, what you might encounter, whether it be, someone on the corporate upscale end to maybe the street, the combat zone, or maybe somewhere in the middle. Or even weird visitors to Night City as well. There is a list of quick names to come up with. Mask, femme, non-binary, handles. Some moods for the NPCs. There's also NPCs by roles, which I tend to have a pretty well curated list of NPCs that I go to depending on where people are going. But this is always helpful. There's even a nomad that I didn't know existed until I looked in here. And it was just like, I've looked through the books, but I can't find where they are. There is various things. There's just, the section is called things. We have fashion, we've got fashion wear, firearms, kibble and treaty fizz flavors, and advertisements as well. And corpse loot. Finally, a random generated table of what is in their pockets, whether it be street rats, edge runners, corporates. There's, what's playing on the radio or, what's on screen. There's the mission generators, which talks about what type of missions, are there certain special items provided for this mission, and what fits for either corporate high-tech area, moderate community area, the street, or the outskirts. Also, beat chart generators as well to help you pull together what this mission will look like. And then, random encounters. We have more random encounters now. And some of them are even weird. Like, we've got day, night, and after midnight. And, oh, they're good. Oh, they're so good. There may be aliens. There may be aliens. And then finally, you can make your own random things tables, which they're fillable. Though they aren't form fillable right out the gate. You'll need to make it so it's form fillable. But you now have a random things generator. So, that being said, the last other little feature I noticed is there was a diceless dice sheet, which is just a sheet with various D10 faces and D6 faces that you put your finger on. You close your eyes, put your finger on, and that's the number you rolled. And also, there are blank forms for your solo play adventures, which include NPC sheets, edge runner sheets, investigation sheets, quick and dirty combat tracker, net running tracker, beat chart trackers, and IP tracking as well. So of course, with any good video, I am going to give my final thoughts here. General rundown, single player mode is very straightforward in what you need to play the game and how to play Cyberpunk Red by yourself. So that being said, I really like how Artal and Peter Norton put this together. It was very, very well laid out. I also like the expansive amount of roll tables that I have, not only as, you know, playing with myself, but I can also use these when I'm, you know, playing with a crew. And I really, really hope that other people will take a moment to take the opportunity to jump on this, because this, for what all is in here, it's really, really good. It has something for everyone, no matter what position of the table you play at. Whether you're a game master, whether you're a player, whether you're someone that just wants to try Cyberpunk, but you just have no one that wants to play Cyberpunk, this is it. All in all, it reads really, really well. It is very smooth, and the examples in here are absolutely fantastic. And that being said, I think my only big criticism for this is that some parts are just not form fillable. But oh well, it's a PDF, so I was hoping that maybe there were some form fillable parts to it. You could probably figure out how to add that yourself. I don't know, but I'll figure it out. That being said, I would recommend this to anybody. If you like Cyberpunk Red, I would highly recommend single player mode to anyone. So with that being said, I'm Diamond Dust. Shout out to Peter Norton of Hollow Pond Solo Saga. Go check out his channel as well. And we'll have Peter on soon. So send your questions to either Emeron or I's Discord. Send it to the Wireheads podcast. We're going to talk to Peter soon. Probably in a couple weeks. And if you want to help support the channel and what I do, click on the, click on the various links. Figure out how you want to support. And it helps keep the, tummies full. Keeps the lights on. Keeps a roof over my head. But with that, I'm Diamond Dust, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.